Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, I want to go over some Maple Leafs lineup things. And the reason why I don't say that too confidently is because we still don't really have a solid grip on what the Maple Leafs' lines are going to be looking like, and there's only one more exhibition game heading into the regular season. I had to zoom out to fit everyone on the screen here, but the Maple Leafs still have 27 players on their roster, and they'll more than likely need to cut that number down to 21 in order to be cap compliant once the season starts. And it was made official today that goaltender Michael Hutchinson did clear waivers. Now, I know not a lot of people may be excited about that, but when you consider that it's Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek, and both of those two have a bit of an injury history, it's not a bad idea to want to have Michael Hutchinson and his .918 save percentage from last year in about over a half dozen games. Did I say 918? Sorry, I meant 919. 918 was just off the top of my head. Going from a 27-man roster down to a 21-man roster will require some compromises. Obviously, some more difficult than others, because players like Curtis Gabriel and Michael Amadio and Alex Biega, well, they may have played well during the preseason, some better than others, they more than likely don't make the Leafs out of training camp. But that's not to say that we may not see them later on in the season, depending how many injuries the Leafs sustain. Now we're down to a 24-man roster, and here's where we start having to make compromises. Players like Kirill Semyonov, I've really liked what he's brought as a potential bottom six center to the Toronto Maple Leafs this preseason. He may not pack much of an offensive punch, but from what I've seen in the preseason, he can make short passes. He's a decent skater. Maybe he's not the best with the puck on his stick, but he has shown the ability to win the puck back after he's lost it, and he's been particularly effective in the defensive zone, and most importantly, he's a centerman. Actually, most importantly for the Leafs, maybe not for him, is that he's a centerman who is exempt from waivers, which I think hurts his chances of making the team out of training camp, but if there's an injury, he's probably the first one that you call upon, especially if you're looking at a centerman. Because at this point, you're either sending down two or all three of Semyonov, Engvall, and Brooks to become cap compliant. If Semyonov is the player that you're hanging on to as an extra forward, then that means that both Engvall and Adam Brooks would need to pass through waivers, and you would risk losing potentially both of them. But if Kirill Semyonov is one of the guys that you're sending down, then you're only risking one of Pierre Engvall and Adam Brooks on waivers. And now it's on to everyone's favorite part of the video, talking about Pierre Engvall. Said absolutely nobody ever, so I'll try to keep this as short and sweet as possible. Kyle Dubas earlier on in the offseason said that they would like to have more cap space during the regular season in order to remain flexible on things. Last year, they were so tight up against the salary cap that in order to give Jason Spezza a day off, they needed to place him on waivers and have his agent come out and say that if anyone claimed him, he would threaten to retire. Because if that's the route that you want to go down, and the Leafs are serious about wanting a little bit more breathing room, then Pierre Engvall is that guy over someone like Adam Brooks. And that sort of makes sense, because if you take a look at a couple of variations on what the lines could be, I don't see a world where Jason Spezza is the full-time center. And I also don't see a world where Pierre Engvall is the center on that line. I don't want to call what Mikheyev did shooting last night on the 2-on-1 pass from Kirill Semyonov, I believe on the penalty kill. I don't want to call it shooting. I want to call it like swiping or whiffing or swinging. It's like watching him try to shoot a puck is like watching Randall Grichuk try to swing a baseball bat, if you followed the Jays at all for the last month or so. And especially after watching the All or Nothing documentary, which, by the way, I posted a video sharing my thoughts on that, which I will leave linked above the screen and at the end of the video. After watching that, I can't seriously believe that they're playing him in the top six for any other reason than to get the point across that he is not a top six forward to not themselves, to everyone else and him. It's like that Gordon Ramsay meme where he has the two slices of bread on either side of the person's head and he asks them what they are. And after they don't know what to say, he calls them an idiot sandwich. There were 277 forwards to at least play 500 minutes at 5-on-5 last year in the NHL. And Ilya Mikheyev ranked 58th in scoring chances for per 60. Cool. The player does not know what he is. And that causes problems. Because you can't just run him out there for 82 games next season next to John Tavares and William Nylander and just have him be a black hole offensively, or just shoot the puck right into the goalie's pads or right into his chest or whiff on those 2-on-1s. You can't have that all season long. He does not know what he is, and what he is perfectly fine. That's the thing that's frustrating when it comes to this player. He's a fast, relentless forechecking forward who plays pretty good defense, 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. I don't do this very often, but I owe Nick Ritchie an apology. Nick, I am sorry. Because earlier on in the offseason, I said that I didn't necessarily want him playing in the Maple Leafs' top six because he takes a lot of penalties. He's not the greatest player defensively. And when he was effective offensively for the Boston Bruins last year, it was either on the power play or not against other teams' better players. Being able to recognize what and who you are when placed in a specific role is a gift that no one can give you other than yourself. And Nick Ritchie knows exactly who he is when he's playing with Mitch Marner. He is the guy who goes to the net. He is the big body in front of the net. He is the big body in the slot. He is the guy who really all he needs to do is keep his stick on the ice. And last night for doing so, he was rewarded with 2 goals. And that's my problem with Pierre Engvall too. He doesn't know who he is. Pick one. Do you want to be the guy that snipes it from the dot on the power play? Or do you want to be that guy that gets deployed in the neutral zone and wreaks havoc on the other team's transition game? Do you want to be that reliable penalty killer? Do you want to be that really strong skating player on a defensive line? Which one do you want to be? What do you want to do? Who are you? Jimmy Vesey couldn't figure that out and he got himself cut. Alex Galchenyuk, maybe he was willing to listen a little bit, and maybe if they had a little bit more time with him, they could have worked on things. Josh Ho-Sang is literally open to doing anything. You know what? He may have some stuff to figure out. I'm not going to say that his game is perfect, but he seems willing to try to figure out who he is. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, you're just stuck in this constant state of limbo. And that's what Pierre Engvall has been. That's what Ilya Mikheyev has been. And that's what Travis Dermott has been ever since they broke into the NHL. They don't know who they are. Are you fancy spinorama back pass guy in your own zone? Or are you the honey badger that can stop guys up at your own blue line? I don't know, man. I'm not telling you to stop being a skilled player or stop trying to make creative breakouts, but just like pick one. Pick one. Because being inconsistent with everything that you're good at and then being average to mediocre at the other stuff, I don't have time for it anymore. Know your role, know who you want to be, and do it. I respect the skill. The skill is really the only reason why these guys are continuing to get looks, right? But if you don't put the skill and being able to play an effective role together, what's the point of having it? It's just frustration. In a world where the Toronto Maple Leafs want to prioritize cap space, so Adam Brooks over Pierre Engvall, this is what the lineup would look like. And you'd have Wayne Simmonds rotating in for Jason Spezza. You'd have Jason Spezza rotating in for Wayne Simmonds. You know, those guys are older. There's going to be injuries. Guys are going to need maintenance days. Jason Spezza requested not to play every day as part of his contract last year. You know, maybe for opening night, Brooks doesn't play and Spezza plays center for that one game because it's opening night. But afterwards, there's a back-to-back. They play Wednesday and Thursday to start the regular season. And in the world where you're not prioritizing cap space and you're placing Adam Brooks on waivers in favor of keeping Pierre Engvall because you're hoping that he figures it out, and if he does, he's probably the better player than Adam Brooks, this is more than likely what the Leaf lineup looks like. With Pierre Engvall filling in for Wayne Simmonds and Jason Spezza, or if there's an injury. But I can't help but look at Kerfoot on the fourth line there and feel that he's wasted. And I also can't see the Leafs trading him at that point either, because that would be absolutely maddening. Especially with what went on with the Seattle expansion draft. He just feels like too much of a useful player. He can play center up in your lineup. He can play lower in your lineup. He can play the wing in a defensive role. He can play the wing in an offensive role. You can play on your power play, your penalty kill. The only thing that he can't do, 100% for sure, we've gotten that down packed, is be a shutdown centerman. And of course, if you're prioritizing cap space and a player like Pierre Engvall clears waivers, that's great. That's great. That would get you more cap space. You would hold on to a valuable player still who can play center, the wing, on the penalty kill, who is talented, clearly, and it would only count as 125 grand against your cap, and then you can call him up and send him down basically as many times as you want for the period of about a month. And at that point, hopefully you've accumulated or accrued enough cap space so that you can afford to have 2 extra players, to have a 22-man roster instead of just a 21-man roster. Because if you're looking at the month of October, having just 1 extra forward and no extra defenseman on the roster may be okay for the first week or 2 if there are no injuries. But once you get to a point where you're on a longer road trip, like you are towards the end of October from the 23rd to the 29th there, you may want to carry an extra defenseman. And at that point, the only way to get one on the roster would be to waive the extra forward that you inevitably keep. So either Brooks or Engvall. So it seems kind of inevitable that they're both going to be on waivers at one point anyway. There's LTIR and there's emergency call-ups, but that burns through your cap space and it makes it very difficult to make in-season trades. And the point of, starting the year with some more cap spaces so that you can make more deals or bigger deals when it comes closer to the deadline. And obviously, just because you have the starting lineup and the lines to start the game doesn't mean that those don't change and fluctuate throughout. If you're in a certain situation that calls for some more defense, maybe you stack the shutdown line. If you need a goal, maybe you stack the offensive line. And like I've said many times over the last little while, the fact that we can't lock down 4 lines with a combination of 12 to 14 forwards, whatever it is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that they have depth and there's fluidness to their lineup, right? There's options, and that's a good thing, especially throughout the course of 82 games where you're gonna have injuries and you're gonna need to switch things up situationally. But all things considered, what are you guys feeling here? Let me know down in the comment section. What is your preferred lineup or lineups? But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you did like and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, one more week and one more preseason game before things get rolling.